Unprecedented is the word that's being used by our reporter there, Advocate, about this decision of the Constitutional Court that is going to be taken today. Let me start with the first one that comes to mind, and that is, have we seen a time in democratic history since 1994 where a constitutional court, this is the highest court in the land, has had to impose a custodial sentence, if indeed that is what they're going to do this morning? Has there ever been a time where this court was forced to send someone to jail?
There have been cases that come before the Constitutional Court which are criminal cases, and so on occasion they have, for instance, confirmed sentences on people. But in the way that it's appeared before the Constitutional Court currently, which is as a court of first instance, in other words, the question of guilt and of sentence have both come before the Constitutional Court as the first court where this question appears. This has not occurred before, and as your reporter rightly says, it is therefore unprecedented.
Advocate, then there is the element that I think everyone sort of was shocked by, and that is the Constitutional Court asking the former president as to what the appropriate sentence would be if he is found to be in contempt of court. Is there a legal principle that allows for this, or was this something that, again, if we use the very same word, unprecedented for this court to do?
Again, it's unprecedented in general criminal matters. However, the Constitutional Court does operate by issuing directives where it, for instance, has queries or questions, and so it's not unprecedented for the Constitutional Court to send out a query or an inquiry to some party appearing before it to try and establish the true position. And it also might indicate that the Constitutional Court, or just how seriously the Constitutional Court is taking this, so that if they were to find Mr. Zuma guilty and to impose a serious sentence, it would be more difficult for Mr. Zuma to make the argument that the Constitutional Court didn't try and understand his side or his version.
Yeah. Advocate, then, if indeed the court does find him guilty and subsequently impose a sentence, this is the highest court in the land. The understanding is that you cannot appeal a decision that has been made by this court. Am I correct in that understanding?
Absolutely correct. This is the highest court. It goes no further. There's no appeal from this court.
All right. Then let's talk about if the court does not impose a custodial sentence to the former president, as asked for, by the way, by the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. The understanding, in fact, the argument by Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, who was talking, representing the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, he argued strongly that this almost has to be a case where this court has to almost teach and use the former president as some kind of a lesson to anybody who wants to defy this court by imposing this custodial sentence. So, in so doing, this court would then not only confirm its authority, but make sure that the judiciary as a whole is not undermined. If the court does not do this, Advocate, if the court does not impose a custodial sentence, what will the ramifications be?
The argument is well placed. It certainly is the case that the Constitutional Court needs to be careful, of course, if it finds Mr. Zuma guilty, needs to be careful to send out a message that will prevent a repetition of this. But that sort of argument gives expression to only one of the considerations that a court must consider in imposing a sentence. It's known as the deterrence argument, the idea being that a sentence must not only deter the individual from repeating this conduct, but must deter generally society. But there are other considerations that a court must take account of. They include retribution, so the court must give expression to the extent of harm that it considers having been committed here. But there's also the considerations of rehabilitation that a court must take account of in sentencing, and it must mix all of this with an extent of mercy when imposing sentence. So there's many considerations that a court must take account of in giving expression to a sentence or imposing a sentence.
Very interesting indeed. I was actually going to ask you about what the process might be if indeed the court does find that the former president is guilty and perhaps will need to be sent to prison. Thank you very much for explaining that to us so well, Advocate James Grant, giving us his legal analysis ahead of this important judgment. That's how we wrap things up, and as you saw there,